What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, there was like 6 different times I wished we had a show over the weekend because there were so many big moments in the league and big games. How are you doing?
I'm good. I hear you. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The good news about that is that's what Mondays are for sometimes, man. Just rather than pick one game from yesterday, let's just talk about everything that's happened like over the last 72 hours or so.
Well, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to get into a lot of different games and different teams. Later in the show, we'll talk about the Lakers beating the Clippers 2 times. We'll talk about the Orlando Magic, my Orlando Magic, who are on a losing streak right now and feeling a little dejected based on some of their comments. The Kings beat the Rockets, Bucks beat the Nuggets and Mavs, Warriors lose to the 76ers. All of that is on the docket today, but we're going to start with what I think was clearly, even in a weekend full of big games and good games, there was one that stood head and shoulders above the rest, and that was Friday's matchup of the Cavs versus the Celtics. It was a game in which the Celtics start off 25-3, and everybody on earth thought, man, what a bummer for the Cavs to be good this all year and then have a matchup like this that would be demoralizing. But that wasn't the case. They stormed back in this one, played an incredible second half, and get the win in Boston, 123-116. Legs, I'll let you start us off, man. What did you take away from this one?
I think listen, man, to have that sort of mental, wherewithal to stay with it down 25-3, you're not going to, it was early. You're not going to wave the white flag, but to look at that, and they burned at least 2 timeouts to start the game during that stretch, maybe 3. I don't even remember. At least 2. After the second one, when it goes 25-3, I mean, they're walking off the court. Yeah, their body language is not great, as you can imagine. Just to think about digging out of that kind of hole against that team on the road.
Yeah.
But here's one thing I always joke about in today's NBA, because of the 3-point shooting and the volume of 3-point shots. 20-point leads are great, but not when they're early. When they're that early in the game against a really good team, there's so much time to make that up. And obviously the Cavs did that. Really interesting. They both had identical 3-point shooting night, 17-39, both teams. So the Celtics did a lot of that damage in the first 8 minutes of the game. And then Cleveland did a lot of theirs, obviously, throughout the rest of the game. Make it all the way back. So that's just the first thing, man. Like, you're down 22 points on the road that early to a team that good. What are the odds that any team's coming back from that? So it's impressive what they were able to do. Donovan Mitchell was spectacular in this game. Darius Garland didn't have a great shooting night, was spectacular at times. Him more so to get them back in it. Like some of the stuff he was doing when they were down 25-3 to kind of chip away at that. And then Mitchell was just incredible in the second half of this game. Look, Cleveland now has been involved in, like, if you take a look at the top 5 best games you've watched all year, like Cleveland's in 2 or 3 of those. They find themselves in these games, and Adam, they're contributing to why it's so great, because they're so great. And now they sit there at 50-10. We were just talking before we came on the air. Their 3rd winning streak now of 10 games or more this year. They're currently on a 10-game winning streak. For context, there's only been one other one in the entire season all year. That's Oklahoma City. They've got 3. And there's one other one. Crazy. OKC had one. That's what we're talking about here. Like they get hot and they just go on these long runs. And looking at their schedule, whether it's they keep winning every night, regardless, they're going to win a lot more games over the next couple of weeks too. It's possible this thing does crank up, to get up above 15 or whatever it may be, the same streak they had to start the year. So just, man, the Cavs are impressive. If you're not bought in on them yet, you might want to think about it.
If you don't buy in after this last game, you're just being a hater, because they did all of the things you would say, oh, well, we'll have to see them do this. It's so tough to be on the road with that crowd on a Friday night game and go down 25-3 and say, you know what, let's bounce back from this. To your point, the winning streaks, they've already played their tough teams. They played Oklahoma City all the times they're going to play them. They played Boston. The schedule from here on out is not too tough. So for them to already be where they are, that says a lot. But here's two things I want to kind of ask you about. I think they do two things that are especially impressive and signatures of a championship team. The first one is they do the best job of reversing the ball, attacking the right side of the court, and then swinging it to the left side and attacking, because defenses want to overload. They want to try to trap and blitz and do these different things. They swing the ball and get actions out of that so well. And the second thing, completely different, they veer switch as well as anyone in the NBA. We talk about the guard-to-guard actions and how important it is to be able to switch without giving things up. Well, they also can get beat off the dribble in a way where the defense steps up and whoever was on ball naturally rotates to the next open available guy. And in today's NBA, especially against Boston, you're going to be spread out. You're going to get beat off the dribble. That's what those guys do. The ability to work together to cover for each other without giving up seams is so impressive. And I've watched them enough this year to say they do it every night. They make those veer switches as well or better than anyone else in the NBA.
They're just like, they're just so complete. They're so deep. Their bigs play as connected as any two bigs in the league. The way that those guys play off of each other, just exceptionally well coached. Man, I thought they were well coached last year. Kenny Atkinson has taken this to a whole nother level, and he's got more pieces, I think, than JB Bickerstaff had. When you look at Ty Jerome and the impact that he's had, obviously now you got DeAndre Hunter, who I don't know what the guy's shooting from the three since he got there. He's 54% since February 1st, but the first three games were with Atlanta. He's probably pushing 60% from the three-point line since he got there. At a 32-point night against Portland the other night when Mitchell didn't play after the Celtics game. DeAndre Hunter just picks up the offense and he goes for 32 as a starter. So Kenny Atkinson has a little bit more at his disposal. I think Mobley's a different player than he was a year ago, but he's maxing out who they are on both ends. Their switchability on the perimeter is something you said, critical. Their bigs and the way that those two guys play in tandem defensively and offensively, the interior passing at times, they make teams look really small with their interior passing, or they can shoot a ton of threes in a given quarter and beat you that way. So look, I'm not quite at the point where I'm going to say, I think this team's going to the damn finals. I'm not quite there, but every time I watch them, they're chipping away at that, because it always comes back to the same thing. Yeah, but Boston, look at Boston starting five. Just look at the versatility and how complete those five players are on both ends of the floor. They won a championship, the experience of having gone through it, all the big moments that they've had together. So that kind of suppresses any other team getting into that, really thinking they could win the Eastern Conference. Man, the Cavs are chipping away at that all the time when I watch them. And so this is going to be a really fascinating, last 6 weeks of the season here to see how we all feel about the Cavs going into the postseason.
I'm curious though, and I just kind of want to follow up on this idea of the, veer switch or whatever you want to call it, because they do it so well, and they did it in critical moments of this game when you're out on, say, Jayson Tatum, and he beats you, he gets you on your hip, and most teams you're dead. So, somebody rotates, you try to trap or whatever, and there's an open guy. Their ability to get beat and immediately segue into maybe it's Mobley steps up and it's a switch, even though it doesn't look like a switch until it's too late, and everybody just falls into place. Maybe it takes three guys switching, a little three-card money almost in the way they switch on the backside, but they do it every time. And in the clutch, that's what gave it's one of the things that gave Boston such fits, is the seams were never open because they were doing these complex switches without any loss.
Yeah, and to your point, these are hard to pull off because they come a little bit in different areas of the floor than what you're used to. Most switches are taking place 30 feet from the court on a ball screen, typically, or on a down screen when it's just obvious type stuff. This is different. This is a gray area that most teams would have a very difficult time pulling off seamlessly. You might get that guy to rotate over when it looks like a player has a half a step on somebody. So that's the easy part, getting the guy to rotate over. But for everybody to understand what the chain reaction has to be so you don't end up with 2 on the ball, or you don't end up with 2 guys closing out on the next pass, the next shooter. Requires an incredible amount of repetition. It requires a lot of film work. And look, it requires some continuity amongst your personnel, which they do have for the most part. You know, that core 4, especially from a year ago, like those guys are still together. And so you've had more time together, but now this is a different coaching staff asking them to do different things. Very tough thing to pull off. You got to have smart players, and you have to have guys willing to be concentrating and paying attention in film sessions, walkthroughs, and in practice, so that this becomes second nature to what you're supposed to do. Because it's very easy on these type of plays you're talking about for just to end up with 2 on the ball, and then it's a kick out, and then one more pass, a guy standing open naked in the corner for a 3-point shot. They don't give up a lot of those. So to your point, it's hard to do, and it requires a commitment to it. It has to be part of your identity of how you want to play defense, and then you got to have the right guys buy in to paying attention to the extent you have to for this to become muscle memory.
And it's especially important for them, and maybe with a reason that they're so good at it is because they have to be, because as we saw in this game, teams are going to try to go at Darius Garland in one-on-one. And when you have great one-on-one scorers like Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, he is a mark. But there were plays in the end I want to walk you through that I thought were so impressive. 2 minutes to go. Celtics are trying to get Garland switched on to Jaylen Brown. And Garland did a good job of almost sitting behind Jaylen Brown to force him to the sideline for the screen, the guard-to-guard screen. And Dean Wade attacked Jaylen Brown so high and so aggressively to trap, or maybe it was Derek White, so that Darius Garland didn't have to switch. He could recover from it. On the very next play, it was the same thing. Garland was pressed on the ball so high that the screen had to come up high, then was able to get around, and Tatum set a moving screen. Those are the team trying to attack Garland and get him switched on to Brown, but the whole team is working to make sure that doesn't happen in a way that was impressive because, again, they blocked what Boston was trying to do in the clutch in that way.
Teams that play this kind of defense, or teams that in general having a really aggressive approach with the defender of the screener, in terms of coming out hard heads, is what you're talking about. Like Dean Wade flying out there way early and way aggressive and super high. Your goal, and you've done your job as that guy, if the ball is dribbled at least one time in the direction of half court.
Right, back,
Now, that's all it is. That's the simple rule. You can't come out and be flat so the guy can operate sideline to sideline, because you're going to end up probably getting in your own teammate's way, whatever you're trying to execute. Your goal, if you don't want to switch it, is to make sure you come out so aggressively that the ball handler has to veer that dribble toward half court for even just one dribble. If you do that, the momentum is now gone for that player, and the guy that was on him initially can recover back and get ready to play him again. And that's the thing, what you're talking about. And look, as you're a ball handler and you see a guy coming out that hard, that aggressively, that high, you don't have really a choice. You got to be otherworldly patient and big and strong to like withstand that without really doing what I said, which is take that dribble away from the basket to allow everybody to stay where they need to and keep eyes on the ball and not overcommit or get over compromised at the point of attack, which is always going to lead to something good against a good team.
And I see in the chat right now, Mose Neff says, if the team is smart, like this won't work in the playoffs, teams are smart, they'll figure it out on the backside. Well, this is what Mobley and Jared Allen provide you. If you're attacking, a non-rim protecting center on those swings, you could put them in a tough spot. Now it's 2-on-1. Do you get the lob? Do you get the layup? Cat and mouse game. But those two are too good at it. They're really, and then the backside rotations are so good that I don't think this is a simple solve. Even if you're able to execute that as an offense, you still have to finish over tough rim protectors for 48 minutes. So I don't know that this is a simple fix. I want to tell you, though, I always talk about Isaiah Joe as my favorite shooting guard screener because how well he releases. He sets the go screen, releases, makes it tough. He has company. Max Strus, to me, is tied with Isaiah Joe as my favorite shooter, who is so good at the subtle nuances of screens that just put teams in pickles. He was so good at it in this game.
He's really good at pivoting his hips after he runs out to set a go screen or an actual screen. He's so good at coming out of that and pivoting and swiveling his hips really quickly to get his feet back turned around forward toward the rim so that he can catch it and release it really quickly. It's something that it's clear he's practiced and worked on. Some teams don't put enough time in with guys working on these kinds of things in camp or with their individual player development guys. It's clear that he's put a lot of time in it. He didn't do this nearly as good in Miami as he does it now. He's understood the way this team plays and moves the ball and the number of threats that you have on the ball, whether that's Mitchell, Garland, Ty Jerome now is getting into that category. Like, this guy's going to hurt you with the live dribble when they get a screen. He understands the reaction to those guys coming off. So he's had to work on this because the opportunities are going to be there. He'll come from a dead sprint from the block or the corner or the wing, a dead sprint up toward the top of the key. And just as he gets there to the point where it's about to look like a real screen, he'll just spin out of it, swivel his hips. And by the time he's gone 10 feet, he's back squared around, turned around, facing the basket. And it happens so quickly. The ball handler takes two players or like one and a half. That seconder's coming with him for a few steps, and the ball comes right back to Strus, and he's ready to toe it up and shoot it. So that's a good observation on your part. It's just crazy how everything this year with Cavs, everything fits.
Yeah.
All of the pieces fit, all of the reserves, the complementary players fit, their starters fit well together, the backcourt fits together. That's why they're a complete team, man. That's why they're 50 and 10. 50 and 10.
I got three more little notes for this game, two more on Cavs. Mobley's threes are a game changer, and he hit two of them in this game that were just so big. I looked it up. He had 23 threes his rookie season, 22 in each of the last two seasons. He's all the way up to 58 now. And in this game, it was like they needed both of them. They both came in critical moments that one of them got him over the hump. It was the shot that put them in the lead for the first time. And I still don't have confidence. I don't love the way it looks, but I'm glad he's taking them, because if you extrapolate this, if he can just become a reliable guy that can make one or two a game, it's such a game changer, because that's the thing Boston was willing to concede when they were trying to stop the bleeding of that big run.
He'll be somewhere around 80 makes this year, probably, when it's all said and done. He's probably he could probably push that next year over 100. Maybe his ceiling's like 120, like something like that. I think, and I thought, by the way, his shooting stroke from the very beginning lent itself to this, but I don't know what it was. Some guys, it takes them longer to get comfortable shooting the shot. He just never looked comfortable going out there. It was like almost like the line had some sort of effect on his brain. It was like a barrier for him. He's broken through that now. The two he hit in this game were absolutely monstrous. During that stretch in the second half. So I've been saying it all year. He's just different in the way he anticipates his impact offensively. I felt like even through last year, there were a lot of stretches of games where he was really just a complimentary player, and he was not someone that was super included in what they were doing offensively. I don't feel that way anymore at all. No. He's out there now to do damage, like to do his thing, and being able to shoot the ball from 18 feet to 25 feet is a big part of that, because there's always going to be space there, but you got to be willing to take it, have confidence to take it. He's put the time in, and now that's a shot that's very makeable for him, and it's been a big weapon for them this year.
Here's one other thing that I think is a weapon for them that's kind of underrated. Darius Garland, to a lesser extent Donovan Mitchell, but Darius Garland is so good at freezing the rim protector to the last possible second. And what I mean by that is he gets to the rim, he elevates, he hangs in the air like he's looking for an angle, and then kicks it out. And what that does is, if you kick it out too early, the defense can react and what have you. You hold it to the last second, everybody moves into their final spot, and then you kick it out, and now you have a swing passes or whatever, and you can get them. He had a bunch of these in the second half where it was Boston played it right. They waited, they moved, and then the kick out comes and somebody was open. And it was very impressive. And I feel like it's an underrated skill against that Boston defense.
Yeah. The other thing, that's a good point. And the other thing I love about Darius Garland, he's really good at being put into like a tight window with a bigger guy on him, and the shot clock gets inside to like 5 seconds. And now he's got to go just do it, create it on his own. He's really good in those situations at the separation with the step back, but it's not just a traditional, like a Luka will just do it anytime with just one dribble left because he's so big. Garland's not. Garland has to set you up first with some other combination dribble to get you sort of reacting, and then he's so quick in the way he steps away from you, or he's so good at doing that move then with a hezzy at the end of it, and then going by you that one last dribble with some sort of a floater or runner up off the glass. He bails them out of possessions because of his one-on-one ability. And he's not like a bigger guard. That's not the easiest thing to do to be efficient. And he is. Feels like all the time. We also got to give credit to these guys, their bench, getting them back in it in the second quarter. Yeah. You think about it, you're down 25-3 and you go in, what were they, down 10 at halftime? You go in only down 10 at half. 12 at the end of the first quarter. Like that game easily could have been a 20-point game at halftime. It's going to feel a lot different to the Cavaliers. Their bench numbers across the board: Dean Wade plus 12, DeAndre Hunter plus 21, Ty Jerome was a plus 34 in this game, Sam Merrill plus 22, and that's with only making one shot. But their cohesion helped keep it together. And when this isn't a 30-point game in the second quarter, and then enabled your stars to do their thing in the third and fourth quarters.
Yeah. It's impressive how many guys contribute to them in different ways. And that it's a testament to both the roster construction, but I think it's especially a testament to what they've built there. Because I always say nobody was coming into the season this year saying, oh man, the Cavs are loaded. They've got Sam Merrill. Isaac Okoro's their 7th, 8th guy, that they're loaded. Nobody is saying that, but those guys are playing like it, where every team wishes they got from their 7th or 8th guy what those guys are giving. And it's impressive. On Boston's side, they were shorthanded to some guys. Like, they've been shorthanded. I know the Celtics fans are going to, want to talk about that, but should we be concerned at all with how many big leads they've lost this year? It feels like that's been a trend for them. And even in the Denver game that followed it, they get up 20 points and it's a game with 2 minutes to go. It's like a 3-point game. So it seems to be a little bit of a trend with them that they can cough up leads more than even the other good teams in the league.
Yeah, definitely. It's a factor. Number one, their bench is not super deep, and one of the things that makes up for that is their starters are so versatile. In some ways, those guys are the backups at various positions. When your starting five is that good, that versatile, like those guys, then when they come out of the game, they're coming back in. It's almost like they're coming back in as the backup at a different position sometimes. But look, a big part of that, Adam, is just the volume of 3-point shots. Now, it wasn't crazy in this particular game, but I do think at some point you look over the totality of their season, you worry about that a little bit. Now, they probably aren't too worried about it. I think everything with Boston this year has just been, talk to me April 1st. Talk to me when this is really getting serious. And we get into playoff. Their money's still on them. And I don't think they're as concerned about it as outside people trying to find reasons why they won't repeat.
As well, they should be, to be honest. I think it's totally fair. This game did put the Cavs 8 games above Boston, which I think the biggest challenge now for Cleveland is going to be nobody's chasing you. How do you approach the last 2 months? Because it's almost impossible now for you to cough up that spot, and we'll just have to see how they play it out. Boston did get a bounce-back win over the Nuggets and looked impressive doing it, so like you said, they're not sweating this one too much. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I want to get into the Lakers-Clippers, and then we have a whole bunch of other games we have to talk about from over the weekend that are all meaningful or have meaningful storylines, so we'll do that and more on the other side. First, let me tell you guys about FitBod. There's plenty of fitness influencers on all platforms trying to sell you less for more. FitBod combines the workout planning and tracking you need to stay consistent and make progress. Here's how it works. What you really need to know if you're trying to get into fitness or if you're already a fitness pro, you just need a system or workouts that tell you, hey, this is your goals. Here's how you accomplish them. This is the schedule and regimen you want to stay on. This is how you want to approach each workout, each lift. That's what FitBod does for you. You give it your information. You tell them how your height, weight, age, different fitness goals, how much time you have to dedicate it. You want 30-minute workouts, 15-minute workouts, hour-long workouts, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, whatever it is. You plug all that information in, and it'll give you a path to accomplishing that goal that is personalized to you. It's so personalized to you that it will even ask you questions about what type of equipment is available to you. Maybe you have some dumbbells and barbells at home, and maybe you have this machine or that machine. Your local gym has some stuff, but not everything. You just plug in what's available to you and what your goals are, and it'll spit out a workout that is tailored to help you accomplish your goals. And if you're new to working out and there's something in there, a workout that you don't know about, they have this great 3D animation that shows you exactly where you should be focused, shows you the exact ways you should be doing that workout to make sure you don't injure yourself. And then it keeps you accountable with these push notifications that remind you, hey, it's a workout day. Are you prepared? Is you in your schedule today? Level up your workout. Join FitBod today to get your personalized workout plan. You get 25% off your subscription, or you can try the app for free for 7 days at fitbod.me/allnba. That's fitbod.me/allnba. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. And they probably have a style in your team's favorite colors. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use your code AC35 for 35% off of polarized shades. I'm telling you, it's spring, getting into summer, lots of sun, lots of reason to be outside. Make sure you pick up your Shady Rays using that code AC35 for 35% off. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here on the All NBA show with myself and Tim Legler. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you're subscribed. We got shows 4 times a week. I believe we're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday this week. And as we talk about every week, man, after the All-Star break, that's when the NBA schedules all these good games. That's why we have so much to talk about. 2 of those games come from over the weekend where the Lakers picked up 2 more wins, both of these over the Los Angeles Clippers. The last one, both of them looked really impressive. And this last one, dominant for portions of it before blowing it at the end. They now have a 6-game win streak. They got Luka Doncic, started a little bit shaky, but they have looked incredible since, and they looked incredible in both at portions of both of these wins over the Clippers. What do you make of it, Legs?
Kind of carbon copy games in a lot of ways. I think it's at the point now. You talked about some of the numbers of the Lakers, just the streak that they're on. They're 16-3 in their last 19 games. I mean, you're talking about now putting up the kind of numbers that you're seeing from these top teams in the league we've been talking about all year. And defensively, these numbers are now, they just continue to climb the charts with their defensive efficiency and what they're doing to teams. And this one, look, you don't just shut a team down from the 3-point line to the extent that the Lakers did against the Clippers. I mean, you contribute to it by missing some good looks. But the bottom line is they held them to 27% 3-point shooting over the course of 2 games, 21 for 76. I mean, there are a lot of teams that make 21 threes like an ignite now, and they go 21 in over a course of 2 games and shoot 27%. So the lack of 3-point shooting for the Clippers was a massive part of these 2 wins. And look, maybe that's, if you go back and look at all of them, and, I don't have data on how many were contested, how many were open, but the Lakers now are at a point where their effort level and belief in what they're doing defensively, I think, has transformed their team. Yeah, Luka paired with LeBron is special, and Luka still hasn't been great. He's starting to get better with his 3-point shooting. Like, that's a big part of his game. It sets up a lot of stuff for him. It's the last 2 games, it looked a little bit better. There were a lot of those shots he missed. I think he was 11 for 49 shooting the 3 in the first X number of games we played for the Lakers. And a lot of those, man, they weren't close. They didn't look good. It's starting to come off his fingertips better. The arc is better initially when he releases it. That tells you his legs are getting stronger. He's starting to get in better condition. He shot the 3 at a higher threat level in these 2 games. That's a problem now. When you're guarding Luka Doncic and he's making that shot comfortably, it's a totally different story. So his 3-point shooting's picked up. Their defense against the 3-point shot and their defense in general, just the energy and the intensity with which they're playing, it's clear that's the message now. You guys want to legitimately contend? That's how you do it, because the offense can be fickle in this league, particularly on that team. Offense is going to be a little bit fickle with shot making around those 2 guys. So let's hang our hat on that end. And every night, bring it at that level, a top 5 defensive caliber team. Every night, good things are going to happen. I'm starting to watch them play defensively. Adam, I'm surprised, first of all, that they're this good all the time, but it's undeniable the energy they're putting forth and the impact they're having on guarding teams. It's making me believe more and more in the Lakers' chances of a deep playoff run.
Well, you said two things I want to comment on. The first one was about the belief of the team, and I would agree with you 100%. I mean, they're playing like a team that believes that this is a special moment and that the opportunity starts now. And the three-point shooting reflects that even in this game, 43%, 18 out of 42. And LeBron was all the misses. Jared Vanderbilt, 0 of 3, LeBron 1 of 6. Everybody else made their threes. That's belief. And obviously you have great table setters. But the defense, to me, the guy I'm going to credit for their defense, not solely, but in terms of rallying everybody, is LeBron James. To me, this is what Luka Doncic has almost provided him is, hey, 3 quarters. For most of the first 3 quarters, we have somebody that can handle more of the offensive load than anyone you've played with. Luka can take the helm. He locks in on defense and plays incredibly hard. And if LeBron James is playing that hard and that effectively on defense, the rest of the team has to do so as well. And you remind you that if LeBron wanted to, and I don't think he wants to do this, but if he wanted to say like, all right, in this stage of my career, I'm going to become Draymond Green and my offense is over. I'm just going to be a defensive guy. He could do it. And he's kind of showing you that right now that he looks like, for large stints, one of the best defenders in the NBA.
The area that has surprised me is, at his age, to be able to still guard quick and athletic, wing ball handler, scoring type guys and cut them off multiple times. He cuts off the first move. The great ones in this league have a counter. And that's what makes those guys so hard, because you can play them well initially. Then they've got some sort of a counter, whether it's a step back or they cross you back up or it's a double cross and they go back the same direction they wanted to in the first place. Hard to stay with all of that. His ability, if you go look at some of the film on him over the last probably 15 games, watch LeBron, the number of times that he's squaring these guys up and how he cuts them off. Then they back away from him. They hit him with another move. He cuts them off a second time. First of all, that's hard to do for any age player in this league, but for a guy his age that to even be that interested in it anymore, to want to do it, there's no doubt in my mind, LeBron James probably had some skepticism when this first went down. You lose AD, you bring in Luka, that's different. He knows Luka has a reputation for not guarding anybody. What's that going to mean for LeBron? I think now he is seeing something in this team and the benefits of having a guy this good on the ball in Luka Doncic and what that does for him in terms of just taking so much off his plate as somebody that's got to set other people up. I think he's seeing it, man. This might have been my best path all along to finding another way to a championship. And so, because he is so bought in defensively right now with his effort. And look, if you go look at the last few years, Adam, it wasn't that hard to find LeBron on given nights. You want to go pick on him in a film session. It wasn't that hard to find plays like that, where he was taking a couple plays off here and there defensively. Yeah. I just don't feel like he's doing that anymore. And he wouldn't be playing this hard if he didn't think that's going to lead somewhere like this year. And that's what I'm sensing in LeBron. And he's saying, man, this has given me renewed life. Because even with AD, I don't think that team was going anywhere. It didn't feel like they were. This feels totally different, and in large part to their defense, and it's being spearheaded by him, which is just, give the guy all the credit in the world, man. Very few people want to turn themselves in to not turn themselves into it, because he's always been a great defender. But you know what I mean? Find it again at this age and stage of his career, like this kind of shutdown defensive ability. It's been incredible to watch.
Well, the other side of this is that the Clippers have been a mainstay in that top 6, above the play-in for quite a while. But you wake up today, 32-28. They are tied now with 3 teams, the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves, for the 7-8 seed. And they're only a half game ahead of the 9 and 10 seed Sacramento Kings and Dallas Mavericks. So we talked about this earlier in the year with Memphis and with Houston. All year you're playing at a certain level, 1 bad week or 2 bad weeks, and all of a sudden you drop 6 spots. Here are the Clippers, who have been the 5 or 6 seed all year, and they're now 1 loss away from being the 10 seed, not just falling out of the top, the top part, but being a road play-in team, which is really, really tough to do. Let's move on now and talk about another one. The Kings beat the Rockets last night. These ones are meaningful to me for all the reasons we just said. The Sacramento Kings, we weren't sure exactly which direction they were headed, but they got a big win, 113-103 over the Rockets. What do you make of this outcome?
Yeah, do you think, I'm asking you first of all, do you think that this says more about like kind of what you might think about Sacramento post, Darren Fox trade and like kind of now this team looking different? Is it more about them, or is it more about Houston maybe being kind of what we've been saying a little bit all year, like very impressive. We love watching them, but super young and not ready to thrust themselves into being a serious player in the West this year. Which of those two things do you think a game like this says more?
To be honest with you, I didn't see this one, so I don't know. My gut goes, though, more to Sacramento makes the coaching decision and they go on a huge run. Then they go on a big losing streak. Then they win 3 in a row. Then they lose 2 in a row. Then they win 3 in a row. This team to me just feels very like hot or cold, and I'm not sure which way things will break for them yet.
6 out of 8. Now they have won again after the big winning streak initially when Doug Christie took over. So now they're back 6 out of 8. The 2 losses, overtime game to New Orleans, when they had plays late in that game to win that game. They didn't, or else you're talking 7 out of 8. And then they got smoked by the Warriors. Those are the 2 losses, over the last 2.5 weeks. So look, they're kind of hovering around. This was an interesting one too, by the way, because I think Sabonis went out. This was the game Sabonis went out, right? He played 1 minute and
right at the top of the game.
Grabbed his hamstring and left the court.
Yeah.
And they're saying that like at least a week now for him. So that's the other thing. Sacramento wins the game and owns the boards without Sabonis for the entire game. And look, Houston is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. So they get on the glass as well. Kings still win the rebounding battle without Sabonis, still get the win without Sabonis. So it's one of the more impressive wins that they've had, certainly, since everything went down with De'Aaron Fox and the coaching change.
And they have an interesting week coming up because they're on game 2 of a 4-game road trip. So they're 2-0 at Utah and at Houston. Now they've got Dallas and Denver coming up. And it seems like to me, those are really important teams because those potential play-in / playoff teams, they mean something. You go 2-2 on a road trip. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. You go 3-1 or 4-0. That's a really good road trip that propels you. So I'm curious for that one. Do you have any notes on Houston side of things? I know I took the other angle on it, but do you have anything on Houston, who now finds themselves in the 5 seed?
Yeah, interesting, because they were as high as 2 and they were there. And I felt like all along, I didn't think they were going to fall off the map, but you did feel like there was going to be some ground made up in other places. Yeah. And it was going to make it harder for them to maintain that. And that's basically what we've seen. Denver got very hot at one point. The Lakers are hotter than anybody right now. So you look up and now Houston has people catching them from behind and pulling them down the ladder. And what are they? Ultimately, they're probably what they're going to end up, which is probably going to be a 5 seed. That's where I think Houston probably finishes.
That's wild. We might get Memphis and Houston matching up. The 2 teams that had been in the same spot, they might end up in the 4-5 here. There is a little shelf between the 5 and the 6, which I think has all of those top 5 teams feeling safe, but we'll see how it plays out. The Bucks picked up a pair of wins over the Mavericks and over the Nuggets, which are both very impressive wins. Now, I watched the Denver game. Obviously, I cover the Denver Nuggets, so I'm watching that one. I walked away from that game more unimpressed with Denver than I did of Milwaukee, to be honest with you. Denver, I thought, let a game collapse that they probably should have won, but there wasn't really much outside of Giannis, who was absolutely incredible. There wasn't much that stood out to me, and yet, I still feel like they're that team that is in that 4 seed that is like the Knicks. We kind of talked about the Knicks and how we're not buying it. I'm just curious where you are with Milwaukee right now after 2 pretty good wins against Western Conference playoff teams.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Milwaukee, a good amount this year, and I always get the same feeling from them. They're not quite good enough to win the Eastern Conference or to get to the finals, but at the same time, you're like, they have these 2 players that, on a given night, when they're both owning their position, and for Giannis, that means really owning the entire front line a lot of nights. And then Lillard is really playing well. You're like, man, that's a lot, just those 2 guys alone. But you still know that they don't have enough. But yet they haven't really gone away. It's not like at any point they went and lost 6 straight And now you look up and they're being caught by somebody in the East, and you're like, okay, man, the Bucks just don't have it. I feel like they're always in that, winning 6 out of 10. This right now, I think they won 7 out of 10. They feel like they're always kind of there. They like, you don't look at them and go, wow, what a terrible week for the Bucks. And so they hang around. They've got 2 top shelf guys, and if those guys play well on the same night, they can win games. But can they win series against those top 2 teams? Everything is relative in both conferences. No matter how a team is playing in the East, you go, yeah, but how do they compare Boston and Cleveland? No matter how a team's playing in the West, I feel like you still say, how do they stack up with OKC? What else matters? And the Bucks, that's unfortunately where the position they're in. Who knows? They might even be good enough to beat the Knicks in a 7-game series. That's possible. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's 2 brick walls in front of you, Boston and Cleveland. If ever 2 teams were headed for a collision course in a conference finals,
does feel like it. Yeah, it does feel like they are. So we'll see if it plays out. The last game we're going to talk about here is the one you called over the weekend. Wasn't a marquee game but it turned out to be an interesting one. And the 76ers getting a win over the Warriors, and the Warriors had been streaking, but 126-119 win. My guy, Quentin Grimes, 44 points. Bring it up, James. My guy goes off. You had a front row seat. I feel like it was poetic that you got a front row seat for this.
He might as well.
I checked my text messages. I didn't see any texts from you. I checked my messages. There was nothing.
He might as well have taken Grimes off the back of his jersey and put Mares on there. That's what I was thinking. Everything he did, I was just seeing your face. Every close-up we showed of Quentin Grimes in that game, I saw your face.
Yeah.
Every time. I kept saying, this is Adam's guy. Although I think now, if you look at the fine print on the My Guy, status and the contract we have with each other, guy gets 40 in a game. I don't know if he's even able to be that anymore. Now you're just a guy.
You're taking him from me. Now he's just a guy. I can't win. I can't win, man.
44. Here's what's crazy about this game. A couple things. First of all, we find out after hearing, we got to the arena, started talking to some people because we knew Jimmy Butler had a back spasm thing going on. And we were talking, I think he's going to play. He's going to play. I think he's going to play. Whatever. That's what we're hearing. And then we talked to Steve Kerr. We do the interview before the game. He says, now Jimmy's out. So he didn't play. Now that's going to be tough. Even though it's the Sixers and the year they've had, Golden State, they're playing well, but they need every win they can get. Yeah. They had a chance to move into 6. And this is before because the Clippers weren't playing that night. So the Warriors could have jumped them for the 6th spot, half game up. And then, of course, the Clippers lose. They'd be a full game up in the 6th spot. So it was an important game for them. Philly is still – it's crazy because everybody's saying, well, now they're just going to lose because Embiid's not playing. And if they don't lose enough, they lose their own pick, which is top 6 protected. So why would you win a game? But apparently that's not the approach of Nick Nurse. That's not the approach of Daryl Morey. That's not the approach of the guys that I watched. And look, Maxey and Paul George couldn't have been worse for 3 quarters. In fact, Maxey all night, he is definitely seriously affected by that pinky injury in his right hand. He was 0 for 10 the game before from the 3 against the Knicks. He was a non-factor offensively in this game. Paul George was really bad until he had to be. He was great the last 6 minutes, hit 2 big threes, hit a pull-up jumper mid-range that was one of the biggest shots of the game. But that showed me the fight and like getting the win the way that they did. They're going to try to win. And I actually think they've got a great chance to end up in the play-in. There was a sense of you're not better without Embiid, so don't take this the wrong way, obviously. Right. But there is a sense of like levity a little bit just because it's not hanging over our head anymore. He's not playing. We're not going to see him. Not just this year. Who knows when you're going to see him next year. But that's it, guys. Look around you. This is what we have now, and we have enough offensive talent to go out and win enough games to get into the play-in at least. And it seems like, Adam, that's their goal because they dug in this game. They fought in this game to win the game. That's not how a team reacts if they've gotten their best guy shut down for the year and now they're going into tank mode. So I think the Sixers actually are going to have a very good chance to make the play-in. It was a weird night. Grimes goes for 44, which, I mean, how could you ever see that coming? But he couldn't make a free throw. He made everything else there was to be made on the court. At one point, he was 12 for 13 from the field, and he missed 5 straight free throws. in the second half of this game that made it very interesting how the game got closed out, or else he has a 50-point night if he makes free throws. Crazy, but he was the show. And no Jimmy Butler, so Golden State just didn't have enough offense at the end to be able to execute and score to match Philadelphia in the last 6 minutes of the game. So it was a big win for Philly. It told me their mentality going forward, and it's just a bad loss for Golden State right now to lose, to that team just finding out Joel Embiid's not playing. But without Jimmy Butler, they were a lot different.
So if I'm understanding correctly, this one win in the last 10 games was enough. You're unburying the 76ers. You're putting them back in the play-in.
Well,
they're only 2 games out.
They're 1 game out in the loss column to the Bulls.
Right. Yeah.
Who are dreadful right now. By the way, I'm predicting they're going to catch the Bulls, and the Bulls were just up 50 on them in that building that I just saw. Okay? This week. They were up 50. I still think there was something about the Sixers. And look, I told Nick Nurse this before the game. We were talking about this and what it means when that guy's finally shut down. And that's the definitive final answer on this. And I said, I went through this in Washington with Chris Webber one year, was our best player, and his shoulder kept popping out, popping in, and we kept trying to play through it. He'd miss time, come back, and you're always kind of waiting for him to come back. And once they finally got season-ending surgery for him, you're not better, but what you are is clearer in your mind of what you have. And some point you look around and go, we still have a lot. So let's go out there and let's just play, man. And that's what it felt like to me. There wasn't the tension in the building as much as there has been. There was a different vibe about the team. And that's why I do feel a little bit different having now seen them in person, that they still might have a chance for this play-in opportunity.
Well, the last team we have to talk about is a sad one, and that is my Orlando Magic. 3 straight. They lose to Cleveland and Golden State. Understandable. Before that, they'd lost to Memphis. Their losses recently, meaning over the last 10 games, are all to teams that are better than them. But, you'd like to see them win a couple of those. But then they lose to Toronto, 102 at home, 102 to 104. And this was a team we both loved. They had some injury problems, obviously, that have affected them, and that's a big part of the story. But Legs, they were a 2-3 seed for part of the year. They're all the way down to an 8 seed, comfortably an 8 seed, and their season to me looks a little in doubt now.
Lost 15 out of 21. I mean, that's like the bottom feeders of the league type stuff. I agree with you, man. Look, and you both thought same thing, man. This was the team last year. I think both of us at one point said that might have been the 5 most entertaining teams to watch for us. They lose in a game set. They lose in 7 games in the playoffs, but and Wagner was awful in that game. Best days are coming. He's got these 2 star forwards, one of whom I think is just a flat out stud in Banchero. Wagner, a very good player. So Suggs came along. You're like, man, this watch out for this team. And the injuries, I think, ultimately undid them. But even since they've been back, Banchero hasn't been as good as he was. Like, he's just not as efficient as he was at one point. They don't feel the same as they did. They're 4 games under 500. You're not going to bury them at all in the East. Who knows? They might still find that chemistry between now and the end of the regular season. And if you finish 7-8, that's going to be that. But you get into a 6, and at that time you're playing well. You're in that 6-5 range, whatever it may be. You're going to have a good series with the Knicks or the Bucks or whoever it may be, Indiana. Like, you're going to have a good series with those teams if you're hot at the end of the year, because I think there is enough talent there to do it. But right now, there's no other way to put it. I mean, they're just struggling mightily. They don't resemble the team they were a year ago.
Well, Suggs might be their most irreplaceable player. He's basically missed the entire calendar year, and it was reported over the weekend that he's going to have surgery to remove cartilage fragment in his left knee, and he'll be out indefinitely. So, to me, well, I think that I personally am opposite you. I think I like Franz a little bit more than Paolo, even though I think Paolo has a higher skill set or what have you. Franz leverages it more. But I think Suggs is the most irreplaceable player, because when you're without Banchero, you have Wagner. When you're without Wagner, you have Banchero. When you're without Suggs, they have some guards, but nobody that does anything like what he brings to that team. So this happens, man. This is unfortunately the story of teams, is you have seasons where you're missing guys too much for you to get a good look at them, and it sucks. They're the negative story of the NBA this year in that regard. All right, we got some super chats. What do we have here, James? Psycho Blue says, Ty Jerome, a fellow Virginia guy making waves. I was sad when the Suns couldn't keep him around in the CP3 deal. Kenny A is killing it. Another example of this being a vet assistance league now. That's an interesting concept. The best coaches being veteran assistants. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think that's a blanket statement. I think, you definitely, have to have certain communication skills to be able to do it. There's a lot of veteran assistants around the league that I probably wouldn't say, no, I don't think those guys are head coach material. Kenny Atkinson has already, had success as a head coach in this league. I'm going to be honest. I really like Kenny Atkinson a lot. I really do. I think he's a really bright coach. I've always thought that. I am surprised at like this level of impact on, for the most part, the same group, particularly before DeAndre Hunter. Ty Jerome's been a nice piece, but even Ty Jerome's been out of this world lately. He's been very good all year, but lately he's been insanely good. DeAndre Hunter just got here. So for the most part, the first half of the year kind of felt like it's basically kind of the same team. And so, but they didn't look the same. You didn't take them as seriously at any point last year. So I give him all the credit in the world. He's had a dramatic impact on this, and this, believability factor with the Cavs for all of us.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I am curious where the next wave of coaches come from and the veteran assistant, but you're right. It's more about leadership and communication than anything, but having that knowledge of being around a team is probably a good prerequisite as well. What else we got? Cedric says, no, Adam. Tim, for you, who could upset Cleveland other than Celtics? Sounds like nobody in the East.
In the Eastern Conference? Nobody. Yeah. Those two teams stay healthy. They're going to play in the conference finals, and we'll make that pick when the time comes. How about that? I don't like make it a prediction now. Make it a prediction now would be silly because you don't know what these two teams are going to look like after the first two rounds of the playoffs either. That's going to also play into it. How they handle those first two rounds is going to influence your thinking. Those two teams will meet in the conference finals.
Yeah. And let it play out, man. That's the fun part. Like, it's like going to the movie. You've got the friend, or maybe it's your wife or your mom or somebody. And like, well, where's he going? What's he doing? Why does he do that? You're like, just watch. Let's find out together. Yeah. Let's see. It's like basketball. Who's going to win? Like, I don't know. Let's watch and let's enjoy it as it happens. Mark Cooper says more legs doing games. I agree. More legs on the call. In fact, you'll be in Denver.
I got a busy week. I got to go. I got Oklahoma City, Memphis on Wednesday, Phoenix, Denver on Friday, and I got another game on Sunday. I can't talk about it because it's up in the air right now. It's one of two games, and until it's confirmed, I can't mention it, but it's potentially a great game Sunday. So I got a busy week this week, man. It looks like I'm going to take this thing all the way through, hopefully the first two rounds of the playoffs, and get a lot of playoff games too, so I'm excited.
But that means Friday in studio, Legs and I together. We haven't done that for a couple months, so it should be great. You guys aren't going to want to miss that one. You're not going to want to miss any of the shows. We got some good games coming up tomorrow. You can cue that outro music, James. We got the games coming up tomorrow. A couple good ones on the slate tonight we'll be talking about early tomorrow. We are at 9 Mountain Time, I believe, 11 Eastern. Is that right, Legs, tomorrow?
We are.
Yeah, so we have an early show for you tomorrow. So wake up, grab your coffee, turn on the show. You guys aren't going to miss it. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.